from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Welcome to another episode of Talking Catholic. I am one of your co-hosts, Kari, Janisse, and I'm here with my very good friend, Mike Walsh.
Hey, Kari, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm actually really excited today. It's a great day so far. It's been awesome.
I have to tell you, you're preparing for a fairly large event in the parish tonight, and you're breaking one of my cardinal rules as a event planner myself, which is to do nothing before the event goes off.
Oh my gosh, that's not my rule.
We're forcing you to record a podcast before you have a major youth event here.
Yeah, they were just like flagging me down outside. You're going to speak at the end of the Mass? I'm like, nope, I'm kind of tied up, but that's all right. Father can do it, and I'm good with it. I actually like to pack as much into my day as I can, so this actually just goes along with my cardinal rule is get a lot of in your day, more than 24 hours, like 26 hours in a 24-hour day.
That's why I like working with you. You're a true professional.
You got it.
Just make things happen. You roll with it. Whereas I am someone who is filled with terrorizing anxiety from time to time, having done so many events in the past and just thinking about everything that could possibly go wrong. I would not be able to have a cogent conversation. So I'm glad you're hosting it, and I just get to sit here and have a chat.
That's why we make a good team.
Very good. So, we're going to get right into it. Who do we have with us today, Kari?
So I'm really excited to introduce our guest because it's probably the biggest well-known Catholic youth speaker that you probably ever had on this podcast.
I believe you're correct, yeah.
Okay, and probably one of the biggest well-known Catholic youth speakers actually throughout the entire nation, and it's Paul J. Kim. So it's good to have you here with us, Paul.
Hola.
¿Cómo está?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Hey, that's all I got.
No, I'm out.
Great to be here with you guys.
Yeah,
well,
welcome.
Thank you for being there. This is outstanding. Kari has been promoting this event for some time, even goaded me into giving her some free advertising for it. And we wanted to make sure that it was great.
Do everything we can.
But, Kari, I guess my first question is actually to you, believe it or not, since you're the organizer of this, is what made you want to bring Paul here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, first, why not? And he's well-known, big Catholic speaker. We have a very large youth program here. And so why not be able to give my youth something? But that's the short answer, right? Why not? The longer answer would be we saw Paul many times, probably 2 or 3 times at least, at the National Catholic Youth Conference. Back in 2015, he was one of the MCs there. That's probably when we got well introduced to him. And then just this past NCYC, National Catholic Youth Conference, some of our youth actually got to introduce him at the first mega session. And so they were really excited to meet him. And then when they heard him, they were so touched. They loved it. And long story short, just about a month and a half ago, he had they started following him on social media, of course, as you would for anybody famous that you love and enjoy and want to see their posts and everything else going on. And so one of my young adults saw a post on a Instagram story and said, "Hey, Kari, look at this. He's coming to the New Jersey area. How about seeing if we can fill this spot that he was looking to fill?" And I was like, yeah, let's try it. So I talked to my pastor. Thankfully, he was able to put together the funding, and he is wonderful about anything that can help youth in the young church. He's all in support of that. And, that's what has helped us in ministry just all along. And so we're really excited to have him here because it all just worked out perfectly. It was like boom, 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 boom. And that's how you know something's meant to be. It's of the Lord, at least for me. I'm like, okay, this is definitely of the Lord's will. And so it happened. And now here we are. It's only been a month and a half. Sometimes you book these things a year out, right? Probably a long time out. And
seriously.
It was just a month and a half ago, and here it is happening.
So just to make him a little more uncomfortable, so we could talk about him a little bit before we give him a chance to speak a little bit.
I'm right here, guys.
What does he do? So for those of us like old men like myself who don't work in this area, where would we have seen him? Now, I did my research, and it turns out he's everywhere.
Yes.
He's ubiquitous with youth ministry. And I've truly enjoyed quite a bit of his content. But what is it that he brings to us?
Oh, he does a mix of his musical talents, which include beatboxing, comedy, and his love of the faith. I think that probably best put it, how he ties it all together. And in a way to inspire the young church, inspire the youth, and even adults alike in the faith, and make them want to grow deeper and closer to the Lord, to his sacraments, and to his will in each of their lives. And so using those talents, putting it all together, it really does ignite and excite people, especially the young church.
I would have to say, if I could just distill that into 2 words, Catholic raconteur would be, I think, what I would go with.
You use big words.
Thank you. I always wanted to say it on the podcast. Somebody else said it for me.
Did you call me a raccoon? What did you say, man?
Only to the Southerners. We are in South Jersey, so we're amongst the Southerners. But it is true. I mean, if you're not familiar with Paul, just type in Paul J. Cam, and you're gonna find so much content that you're gonna look at it. It's gonna come to you in an avalanche of information, mostly on YouTube, but other places where you'll see him speak for an hour on a topic without taking a break, with crafting jokes about every 3 sentences, maybe, which I personally greatly appreciate.
No pressure to make us laugh this whole time every 3 minutes.
Just try.
But then you go to the next YouTube video, and it's a conversation with a couple of Catholic interviewers like us, where he kind of explains, his Janisse. Then another one where you suddenly realize he's in a music video, and I was like, okay, that was the third thing I think came across. I'm like, wasn't expecting that, and then you realize it has a rap element to it, and then you hear the beatboxing later on. So you're almost indefinable. So my question to you is, Paul, what are you, and what are you doing here?
Human being.
There you go. Well done.
End the podcast.
So no, really, what got you into youth ministry?
Well, it's a long story, but essentially in high school, I encountered Christ for the first time, and that's kind of weird, right? But when people are asked, "Do you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ?" People are like, "No, I'm not Protestant. I'm Catholic. Why would I have a personal relationship with Jesus?" But the reality is, the heart of the gospel is our stories filled with choice encounters, whether it's the disciples or just sinners on the street or just everyday folks. And Christ encountered me and I encountered him in high school. Now, it's not that he wasn't trying. It's just that I wasn't really caring much for it. My heart wasn't open.
Sure.
And so in high school, in this moment of grace, I opened up my heart. I was like, whoa, God's real. He loves me. He's not just, just dealing with me, but he actually wants a relationship with me. And you would think that at that point my life would do a complete 180, but instead it did a 360. I just ended up back to where I was before because I went to college.
That'll do it.
College. Yep.
So I went to my dream school, UCLA, and I wanted to major in partying. I wasn't very good at it. I would call it more of a minor. But
did you get the degree
so sad.
though? I
didn't get the degree.
Okay, well,
I ended up transferring
better.
later. It's the next story. But anyways, back to the UCLA part. So anyways, I just try to live a double life, like a good old Catholic, right? Trying to both be devotional and hedonistic all at the same time. And
successfully?
Not very successfully, because
well done.
You can only do that for so long. You can't be 100% at both unless you're some sort of sociopath, right? Where your conscience starts to bother you. And for me, it was bizarre. I would go mess around and hook up and whatever, and I'd go back to my dorm room and call it Catholic guilt or whatever you want, but I'd pray the rosary and I'd kneel down next to my dorm room bed when my dorm mates weren't there. Essentially, I lived in a sardine can. It's called a triple, 3 people in one room. Yeah, that's where the coronavirus started, apparently. No
Topical, nice.
I know, right? Relevant radio. So I'd pray the rosary, and in those 20 minutes of prayer, I would experience more peace, joy, and purpose than I would from a whole week's worth of messing around. Yeah. Right? And so God started, bringing me back to himself, but it was through Our Lady, which was really neat. I never really had a relationship with her before. Didn't understand what her role was in faith in general. But as I prayed the rosary and I got to know her son through these mysteries, I also got to know her. And additionally, she made a lot of effort to get my attention. For instance, I'd be praying the rosary and I'd start smelling roses out of nowhere, which was a bizarre significance. But I knew it was the Mother of Jesus sort of reminding me that she's real, that my prayers aren't going into some void or some hopeful, premeditated, whatever. But when I prayed, heaven listened. And so it intrigued me, fascinated me, captured my heart, my attention. Said, you know what, maybe I should go back to confession. So I throughout my life, whenever I'd go to confession, I treated it more as an acting improv class than an actual examination of conscience. I'd make crap up. I'd pretend that I was better than I was, or I didn't want to, be embarrassed in
Hold
front
back
of
a little bit, yeah.
It's like, who wants to go to the doctor and tell him you have hemorrhoids? It's terrible. It's embarrassing, right?
It's embarrassing.
That may be the perfect analogy I've ever heard for people who drink confession.
I'm going to use that one from now on.
Yeah, hashtag hemorrhoids. So anyways, I type up, I type up a list of my sins that I could recall from, the earliest moments when I suppose my conscience was in effect. And it ended up being a page and a half, single space, 12-point font. It was quite ridiculous. And I printed it out, and then I went to my local church. I asked the father to hear my confession. He says, "Oh, sure, son." So I sit down with him.
Are you ready for this? This is going to be a while, Father.
Right. It's chapter 1, infancy, right? So it was like this long, awkward reading, but, it was a beautiful experience where I heard the words of comfort. I absolve you from your sins in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And it was done. It was gone. And from that point on, it just sort of catapulted me into this desire to really learn more about my faith. I found myself at Mass on a Monday, which was a bizarre phenomena, right? Because who goes to church on a Monday?
Right.
Your grandma?
Exactly.
Obviously.
Everybody that's 60 plus years old.
Exactly.
Not a young college student.
Exactly. So.
And this is off campus. This is not like a Newman Center or anything.
Yeah, I was actually back at home. I think I was on break, but whatever the case, I go to Mass and I bring the median age down to about 40-something, even though I was only 18 or 19. And I encountered Christ yet again, and this time it was during the consecration of the Eucharist, where I'd seen it thousands of times, usually half asleep, but this time it was different. As I sought the Lord, He revealed Himself to me, and in the Word of God, the Lord tells us that when you seek me with all your heart, I will reveal myself to you. You'll find me, and I think there was a little bit of that going on, where I met the Lord, and I had faith at that moment, knowing that what was being represented at the altar, namely the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, the Last Supper, was real. And it clicked. And I was like, whoa, receiving God in the Eucharist. And so I became hungry for that. And I started going to daily Mass, and it's pretty much game over. Like, once Our Lady ropes you in, you're like, you're done. You're donezo.
Yep.
Yeah, you're just claimed. And I was just so grateful for it. And that led to a whole nother, kind of my life story up until this point. But essentially, as I went to UCLA for a few years, I just wanted more Catholicism. I wanted more Catholic identity and culture, and I wanted to just grow deeper in my faith. So I transferred to Franciscan University of Steubenville out in Ohio. And
There's a big culture shift right there from Southern California to Ohio.
Just about probably the biggest that you can probably go, especially to Franciscan. You're going to be put immersed into the faith versus immersed in the secular college campus, as I would imagine.
Yeah, totally. And then, there's also the joke that UCLA stands for University of Caucasians Lost Among Asians, because there's so many. I didn't feel like a minority there. Yeah. I went to Steubenville. I was like one of 5 Asians in a 200-mile radius. So there was a lot of interesting shifts. But as soon as I drove onto campus, my first reaction was, "What have I done?" I feel like I was at camp. It's improved a lot since I went there, aesthetically. But what was really neat was getting to my dorm room and having the Blessed Sacrament Chapel inside the dorm room. Like, you're literally roommates with Christ, right? And so that was just indicative of the Catholic culture and how important it was, and great friendships, great mission trip experiences, great classes and education and prayer. And at that point, I was discerning priesthood. So I was in the pre-theologia program. After I graduated, I joined the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal out in the Bronx, New York. Started in Harlem, then Newark, New Jersey for a year, and then ended up in the Bronx. And it was a great time in my life. It was a beautiful time of discernment and formation. A lot of, it's interesting. It's another topic, but, especially young men in our culture, there's they're severely lacking some sort of rite of passage into adulthood, right?
Yep.
If some approach it through sports, others through the military, others through various means, but I think the vast majority, they just kind of spiral into adulthood and not really knowing what it's all about and are not feeling very initiated, And so, and especially as Catholics, I mean, you might have a confirmation program in your high school years, but what do you have after that, after your faith?
Yep.
And so for me, it was actually a beautiful process to have that time of discernment where I learned how to pray, I learned how to live in community with others, I learned how to serve and witness to the faith.
Yeah.
And that was really crucial for me because had I not had that experience, I suppose I could have found it elsewhere, but it was very formative, those years. Ultimately, it wasn't for me, but...
Well, yeah, I was going to ask, was there something in particular that drew you towards that order as opposed to any other?
The hairiness, they were just like the
Grow
beards.
that beard.
The whole time you were talking, I was like, I'm going to ask about the beard. How did the beard turn out?
Did you get a long one?
I kept it short, just like this. Just the goatee and the little, the little mustache.
But it was that sense of service and devotion that really brought you. Because we've had the sisters on many times.
Cool.
We love the sisters.
And we had Joe Campo.
And we had Joe
from
Campo.
Grassroots Review.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine as well.
Yeah,
great guy.
Yeah. So we've been very happy about it, and their charisms are truly impressive. But it's a tough road to hoe to make that commitment.
Sure.
And we talked with a lot of seminarians. We've talked to many people who were in seminary and left seminary and in religious orders and left religious orders.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, what was that moment when you realized maybe this ultimately wasn't for you, that particular vocation?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of young people will ask me that same question just because maybe they're thinking about discernment or they're thinking, should I join the seminary or priesthood? Or maybe they're currently in seminary religious life and they're kind of navigating it. The reason why the church doesn't automatically ordain you the moment you step into the seminary or make you take final vows the moment you step in is because it is a process of discernment. Not only between you and God, but also between you, the community, and God, right? Where they're discerning with you and they're kind of observing in a sense, right? Where you're at. You're working with a spiritual director. And so for me, there were a lot of beautiful things that I enjoyed about the life, but ultimately, I found myself a bit restless in that setting. Like there were elements of that life that really appealed to me, but it's not, you can't just like things about the life. You have to really feel called to that specific life. Yeah. And charism, which is essentially a big word to mean like what that religious order represents, and not just in the trappings of it, but like through and through.
And the day in and day out of what they do.
Yeah, exactly. And the rule and the constitution that they follow and the structure of it all. So once again, elements of it I was very attracted to, but the life itself I didn't feel called to. And then diocesan priesthood, it was sort of the same thing where we would visit, and God bless our priests, we would visit rectories, and I just thought to myself,
not where God's calling you.
No, I can't see myself doing this like by myself in a rectory or with one other priest. And gosh, there's something that's not really resonating with me, and we gotta definitely pray for our priests, and God bless all that they do, because as I speak to younger priests, they certainly do say, especially diocesan ones, like it's hard because you kind of feel like you're sort of a lone ranger, Yeah. You might have another priest or two living with you, but they're busy, they're doing their own thing. And community is something that every one of us, no matter our vocation, we have to be really diligent about. Because we can get isolated and we can get into trouble. And so vigilance in prayer, vigilance in community life, and just staying grounded, staying focused. I'm curious, when you were with the CFRs, was Father Benedict Goschel a part of that? Were you in touch with him? And he knew you and you knew him? Yeah, I proudly say that he was like my spiritual grandfather, and he befriended me. I was super grateful for his life, his legacy, and
amazing man.
Yeah, the fact that he just made so much effort to just spend time with me, which I'm grateful for. Yeah, because he really is a giant in the Catholic faith, at least during our lifetime. Yeah, he's impacted so many people through his writings, through his television programs, and just a legend, really. Wow. Model priest,
Yes.
And so, if anything, like, I spent these 3.5 years in the community, like, living amongst some of the just the best, holiest men I've ever met.
Yeah.
And to see them live out their vocation, to see them live out their priesthood, to see them preach and interact with the poor, and also, I mean, people from every state of life. I mean, it was truly just by virtue of the fact of me witnessing that, it's impacted me now today as I go and speak and minister to others as a layperson.
I was curious about that, how much have you sort of brought with you? Because just looking at your life over the last 5-7 years that I've seen, it is certainly not anything that would visually have any connection to that life as a CFR. I mean,
you're not wearing gray.
On top of everything else, you're not currently wearing gray.
Sometimes.
But I can see where, I jokingly referred to you as a Catholic raconteur, but it does seem like you have this sort of, we haven't even gotten into really what brought you into what your vocation is now, but I can't look at you and see that this would have been someone I would have considered a CFR back in the day, but I don't necessarily consider that a bad thing. And this is something we talk about with particularly people who have left orders and left the seminary, which is, that there's a beauty to that, and there's a grace to it, and it's a wonderful thing that, as we often say when we've had the former director of vocations for the diocese on, that if you leave if you leave the seminary, the one thing he is absolutely certain of is that that they have produced a good Catholic gentleman to go on. And I've known a lot of former seminarians in my life, and that's exactly how I would refer to them. They are fantastic Catholic gentlemen.
Totally.
Seems to me that you sort of married that sense of devotion to the faith with a person with a great deal of skill sets that might have gone to waste had you remain a Franciscan brother.
I don't know if I would verbalize it in that way, because if you get to know the friars more, in fact, one of the things that drew me to them was that I saw it as a ragtag team of men with different skills and musical abilities and just a certain level of charisma, and also just everyday approachability. And that's what attracted me to them.
Really?
I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen Father Stan Fortuna. Like, this guy is a total character. The first time I saw him, he had cornrows and he was rapping, and he's playing his bass guitar. So therein lies a perfect example. Obviously, not every friar is like him.
Sure.
But every one of the friars, what I appreciated so much is that they were just so down to earth, so human, right? And it reminded me that devotion to God and even a life of holiness doesn't look stuffy. It doesn't look like, pious clenched hands walking around, socially awkward, eyes gazed to heaven, tripping over potholes and stepping on people's feet because they're so strange. Yep. And you've seen that.
It's a natural look of real people. Yeah.
Just organic, like they're Catholic, they love the Lord, they're just real guys, and they're just striving for holiness. And
with really cool beards.
Yeah, with really burly beards, like patriarchal, like Old Testament type beards where food gets stuck, and the Bible doesn't talk about that. But, this sort of thing really captured me. And to just go back to what you're saying, I think I took the spirit of what they were about into my life post-religious life. Yeah. And so I'm really grateful for that, because it gave me a compass, if you will, to sort of navigate, just other chapters in my life.
So you realize you're not going to be a friar, you're not going to be a diocesan priest. What happens next?
Well, God must owe me a wife or something.
Where's she at? Let's go, God.
At least I thought.
Because you were living East Coast, and then your family's from California.
Yeah, right? I'm from Southern California, so I went back there, and it's funny because I was just like, God, I'm ready. Like, I want to be a married man, and like God's like, nope, not yet.
It's funny how that happens.
Got some more work to do here.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, like, why are you holding out on me? Like, even sketchy people have like beautiful girlfriends, and I didn't kill nobody. Like, why are you holding out on me? And God answers prayers in 3 distinct ways. Yes, no, and not now.
Right.
Right. And I wasn't sure if it was a no, so I was getting kind of peeved. But then I realized it was a not now, and that's equally as annoying, right? Because it's, the human understanding of things. We see a moment at a time where we're faced with what we desire and want, and the level of impatience that we have for plans to go our way. And when that isn't met, there's a level of frustration that's directed back to God. Like, why don't you love me? Why don't you care for me? Why don't you listen to me? Yeah. And in the end, he is saying, I love you, I care for you, I am going to take care of everything in your life. But you need to wait. I'm figuring out this big algorithm, and all you see is just what you want now.
Yeah.
And
how long did it take you to sort of come to that understanding?
After I got married.
Really? Okay, there you go.
Great answer.
Because it took me a long time to realize that let's first admit that we'll never figure out God. We understand that.
Right.
But it took me a long time to realize that being patient and waiting, and that there was a plan, and to just let things wash over me.
I don't think you're alone, Mike. I think that's pretty much every Catholic looking to follow God's will.
Yeah, but I really want to have all the answers right now. It's very frustrating. But even today, even as an old man, it still causes me problems from time to time. So it's great that as a young man, you were able to sort of clue into that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Certainly haven't figured it all out. But
so in the time of your waiting.
And the time of my waiting, I was, trying to date everybody who had all their front teeth, and, Catholic online dating. I mean, going out on dates ad nauseum, and nothing would work out. Everything seemed to be, just terrible, utter failures, and just things not working out, super awkward dating moments, and, just a lot of frustration. And I mean, I still wanted to be in a relationship, but when I wasn't quite expecting it was when I met my wife. And it was interesting because we had mutual friends, and we had just never met before.
Oh, really?
Which is probably better, because she was actually dating a guy who she had just broken up with after a 2-year relationship. And it would have been much more dramatic had I known both of them.
Yeah, that would have been.
Hey, man, sorry, I'm with your girl now. But yeah, it worked out. She's a beautiful girl. We've been married for almost 7 years this August. We have 3 kids and 1 on the way.
Yay,
so we are, we're just going for it. Spiritual multiplication.
Yes,
there you go.
Catholic marriages.
That's
Be
right.
fruitful and multiply.
That's right. Basically, yeah.
That's beautiful.
So,
And-
What's your wife's name?
her name's Maggie.
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 Your
Yeah.
children?
Audrey, Aiden, Remy, and in vitro. I don't know.
Well, whatever that went to-
TBD.
Not in vitro fertilization. No.
Let's not get that confused.
The church does not promote that. However, I digress. In the womb, the child is in the womb.
In the womb.
Do you even know yet? Are you going to find out? Are you those kind of people that find out?
Yeah,
do you
we
like
just
the surprise?
do. We don't care.
Yeah.
We're just I don't want to, shoot a rocket grenade that has pink or blue. I don't.
Well, that I don't agree with. I've never been a big fan of the gender reveals. Did you find out before? Did you do a gender reveal?
Oh my God. So 10 years of waiting for this child and watching gender reveals on everybody's social media. I said, whenever God blesses me with a child, I'm doing everything I can do. I'm doing the gender reveals. I'm doing showers. I'm doing everything. So we had a gender reveal with close to 150 people, maybe 200.
What?
Big, huge barbecue.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And we
What was your form of reveal?
My mom and sister had the envelope. I did not know, so we found out at that moment too. And it was balloons, and it coming out of a box. And my husband requested, if it's a boy, please put football balloons in the box as well. So the first thing I saw were the footballs coming out, and I was like, oh no, it's a boy. This is great. And his reaction was close to the same reaction, which happened just about 8 months later, which is when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. That same type of reaction was the same reaction he had. Arms raised to the sky, screaming, hooting, hollering, and then there's me sobbing on the side, just so happy. So it was great. The video is just wonderful if you see it.
Did you weep at the Super Bowl victory as well?
No, I probably because I was like 8 months pregnant then, and hormones were crazy. But more so weeping because of I always wanted a little boy, and there he was. There we knew he was a boy.
We did not. We purposely did not find out, and so when that kid popped out, and 7:40 in the morning on June 23rd, 2008, I looked down and I go, "Hey, look at that! We got a boy. That's nice. I like that."
So that's
John
how your
Joseph.
wife heard it.
That's how my wife heard it, and then we cried,
Nice.
and it was good. There was lots of tears.
Yeah,
Very
there's always
emotional.
tears. It's so beautiful.
Always makes you
New
there's
life.
tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I am happy that he predated gender reveals, because I don't think I could deal
Oh
with the
my
stress.
God. I
of a
would do it
gender
all
reveal.
over again if God blesses me. I love that moment of everyone finding out. So, yeah.
Okay, that's nice. The
Different mindsets.
I'm not. It's okay. You just know me. I'm a joyless person, so it's not a problem. That's fine. I take my joy in my own ways. So you're married. married. You have children.
That's right.
So where did the youth ministry and your ministry come in sort of in that time period?
Yeah, so when I left the Friars, my game plan was to go back to school, incur thousands of dollars of debt.
Congratulations.
And get a piece of paper that I now try to sell on eBay.
Nice.
Never been used. Brand new.
This was back to Steubenville again, or
no. It was a private university in Southern California. Okay. But yeah,
you had a degree in theology, though, right?
It was actually technically philosophy.
Okay,
I minored in theology.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I got my master's degree in marriage and family therapy, psychology. So my thought was I want to be a counselor and be a Catholic therapist, right? Sounds really great in theory, but then started meeting with people and couples and families, and I'm like, I don't like listening to people's problems all day.
Yeah.
That's a problem if I'm going to be in this field. I think it's a really important field. I think it's a very critical resource for many, many people. I think more people should take advantage of therapy and counseling, especially, for Catholics with a faith-based standpoint where there's a worldview that aligns to what the therapist is suggesting. But for me, it was good, but ultimately it wasn't the right fit. So
you were working in that field though for a little while.
For a little bit, yeah. But
was it at a parish or was it at like a private practice?
It was like it was a nonprofit organization that basically assembled different therapists of faith and provided counseling. Oh. Yeah, so it was good. It was a good setup, but once again, it just wasn't a good fit for me. So during that time, I was presenting. To youth groups. I had a knack for music, and I loved sharing the faith, and that's one thing I learned as a friar is I just had this passion to evangelize, and I loved working with young people. And so naturally, when I got back, I started networking with youth ministers in my local diocese, and just told them, hey, I'm here if you ever need help. And God kept opening up these doors, and local opportunities became more regional ones, and then statewide, and then national, and then international. And it's just a very organic process where just God in his goodness kind of, opened that door and made it very clear. Yeah. Because there came a point, too, where as I was doing my internship as a counselor, like the ministry was picking up so much, it was interfering with that. And so my boss at the time was like, hey man, we like you, but you gotta make a decision. I'm like, bye.
Not a hard decision.
I'm gonna go give this talk now at the
And then my mom's like getting worried because she's, typical immigrant mindset. You come to this country, you get a college degree and you work, right? And I'm not doing work according to the degree. And she's like, what are you doing? Are you eating? Are you okay? I'm like, Mom, I'm fine. Like God's taking good care of me. And so it took her a couple years to realize, he can pay for his bills,
make this happen.
He can provide for his family. Okay, all right, yeah, we support you. That's great. We're praying for you, man.
Honestly, I feel like it's even just that generation. My dad's always like, do you have health insurance? Are you okay with your health insurance? Are you have a 401k? Like, this is the mentality, maybe not even just of immigrants, but of the baby boomer generation, maybe. It's
okay,
just like,
boomer.
Yeah.
But true.
I just had to throw that in there.
It's all good.
It's funny.
But yeah, I mean, you are living the correct lifestyle of a person your age in the sense you've been jumping from vocation to vocation to vocation, from job to job to job, which makes me feel very good as a Gen Xer who has done that many times. You look back at my LinkedIn page, it's like 9 different jobs and 4 different industries.
It is now, yeah.
That is, and it's people like us. We learn how to be very successful moving from thing to thing. You started out in marketing, and now you're here.
Graphic design.
Okay, fine.
Close enough.
Graphic design. What was it? Were you designing for things that weren't marketing related?
I was designing HBO DVD packaging.
See, there you go. That's all marketing. That's fine. I wasn't that far off.
In New York.
You've designed stuff for us, and it makes me very excited.
Yes.
But it's true though. It's like I always. A lot of our listeners are older, and I try to explain to them from time to time that this is all perfectly normal, jumping around and moving from thing to thing and really finding your place, because it is a different life. It's a different culture than it was 30 years ago.
Sure.
You can make those moves. You can move from things. Don't do it stupidly. I mean, do it wise and strategically, but moving is fine.
And I think also, and what we see with Paul is that where you feel God calling you, and I think that's ultimately what it was for you. It's like, God's not calling me to this. Well, God's not calling me to UCLA anymore. He's calling me to Steubenville. Now he's calling me to the brothers, and now he's calling me to work in this field to help others. And now he's calling me to these youth ministries and the regional and so on and so forth. And then you see where it's taking you now with God's will and how he wove that into everything probably you did from that point on.
And in a lot of ways, your education, you certainly had schooling, but it sounds to me like the education of life is really what added a lot to your abilities as a...
Yeah, it certainly has, and I mean, I'm grateful too that despite all of the college fees and whatnot, like it hasn't gone to waste either. Where I mean, I can engage in philosophical sort of presentations, and what I do is I essentially challenge people to think not only critically about their life, but also about their faith and the culture. With marriage and family therapy, though I'm not counseling right now, I do get to counsel people in real time as I present to them and try to understand what they're coming into an event with, and how can I communicate into their, struggles and vulnerabilities and their needs, right? And so in some sense, and even with the friars, like once again, just that experience of prayer and community, of service to others, like all of that, none of it has gone to waste, which I'm really grateful for. And so it's just been this very organic process. And, now as a dad, as a husband, even there, I've been blessed by these life experiences. It's given me some perhaps extra resources and experiences that other people may not have been fortunate to have been given. So yeah, it certainly helped even in that regard as well. But
you also do it so joyfully. Like everything that I watch, particularly in terms of your presentations, I mean, I have to imagine this is what really sort of helped you to embrace him as a speaker was, I mean, the level of joy you bring, and laughter and wonderment and really connecting with people. I was watching one of your speaking engagements, and all I kept thinking was, did he have training at the Groundlings or something? Like you seem to have this almost like a comedic training to it, but in like your moments of pause when you'll redirect and things like that to keep the people watching engaged.
Yeah.
Sure. Is that something that's sort of developed over time, or is that something you've sort of born with?
I suppose a mixture of things. I mean, I was a class clown growing up. I think very early on I was sort of dabbling in, how does comedy work? How are jokes well received, and how do they flop? I was the kid like in grade school where it's like I could comment on something and I would sort of observe, did this get laughter or did it totally flop? And it's just a funny thing as I look back on my childhood, even where I just enjoyed sort of getting a response from people, lifting them up and just getting them to laugh and kind of ease up. And so with comedy and that sort of thing. I mean, I've always been kind of a dork, so there's that. But
it helps.
Yeah, but with speaking, I don't think anyone's kind of born as a gifted speaker. I think, it's one of the great fears of humanity. Like, I don't know if there's like a actual Pew study, but I've heard that up near like the fear of death is the fear of public speaking.
Oh, yes.
True.
Right? Because, you step on stage and then you have 100, 1,000 eyes, kind of judging you and waiting to hear like, what the crap do you have to say to me? Why should I even listen to you?
Yep.
And all the insecurities flood in of like, oh, what if I make a mistake? And what if I say something stupid? Or, and so it really works on the vulnerabilities of the human mind. But with speaking, I think you have to learn over time, and if you don't, you're in the wrong field. But I mean, the first time I gave a talk, it was absolutely terrible. I related to no one except myself. It sounded great to me, but I think I left everyone else in the dust. And so therein lies my point, where you do it so many times that you learn just based on that experience, like a muscle memory, what works, what doesn't work, what kind of delivery is helpful, what is a total flop and failure, what kind of joke resonates with people, what kind of way of communicating a point or a theological point about our faith is actually helpful, and what like nods people to sleep. And so it's almost like this process of elimination where you're just kind of shaving away like a sculptor or woodworker, this sort of this work or this product. And obviously it's not just a product, it's based on like witness and what God has done in my life, what he's doing, and ultimately the fruit of just prayer, the fruit of living life in Christ the best that we can, the fruit of being a dad and a husband. being a disciple who is trying his best, who falls and stumbles but gets back up and continues trusting in God. We're all human, and so if we communicate these universal experiences to people, then naturally it casts a wide net where people say, wow, he understands what I'm going through.
Yeah.
He gets what I'm feeling. Oh, yeah, that's exactly how I felt growing up in church, or that's exactly what I'm struggling with now. And I think that's what comedy does, right, too. And I'm not giving a full-blown comedy session like during my talks, but it does help because comedy is interesting in a way where it sort of identifies the very obvious things in our experience that are kind of awkward or ironic, right? That's what makes people laugh.
Yeah.
It makes people laugh. Where you don't think twice about it, but when someone reminds you of how silly it is, you just find it funny, you know. And I don't know. It's
also an opportunity for it to release pressure. I find
Right.
a couple we talk about some heavy topics as we give. Certainly we have it here as well, and I will routinely break up a podcast with a little
jab, a little something.
Exactly, and just to let's reset and everybody calm down again. I find that just watching your presentations, that your timing in that regard was perfect. But I'm curious, Kari, when you saw him the first couple of times and you realized, okay, I need to bring this guy home to the parish, or to your house, I don't care.
Sure.
I'm sure your husband would be cool with it. Were you looking at him as a youth minister, or were you looking at him as someone was he touching you as a Catholic, or was he touching you as a youth minister in the sense of, I got to have my youth see this guy?
I guess, the first context that we met was probably at the National Catholic Youth Conference 2015, I think. Was that the first conference you did?
I did 2013 as well.
Okay, so then maybe there, but it was just a breakout.
Yeah, it was a breakout session.
So I don't think we went. No offense, sorry.
No,
Because I don't think you were as big then.
So rude,
We were going to some of the other bigger rounds at the time. Sorry.
Don't make our guests cry.
I really don't.
Jason Everett, we were there. We were hanging out with him a lot.
Good. He's phenomenal.
Actually, we had him here in 2013, so we were riding that high probably at that point. So
I'm glad you did.
So I don't think we encountered you in 2013. So it would have been 2015, and at that point he was an MC. So in my mindset, I was looking at him, well, I'm a youth minister. My youth are here. He's great. He's running this show in a really amazing way, bringing us through, emceeing it from Thursday night all the way to Saturday night, and with his jokes, but also with his seriousness as well, and his depth of the faith. And so I can say that I wasn't always thinking, I got to bring him here, because it was truly just God setting it up, and that girl texted me back a month and a half ago. But when we got him for a mega session just this past NCYC in 2019, and our kids were introducing him, I sent the text. I was like, guess what, guys? Guess who you're introducing? And so I think it was at that moment where the magnitude of his style and who he is, and the name you've created yourself in the Catholic youth world has really truly, that's where it was at. It was like, okay, this is exciting. Like, we got Paul J. Kim. We didn't care about the other ones. We got, no offense to everybody else, but it was just like, this was the big name that we knew, and they were really excited about that. So I think that was the moment for our group just this past November where it happened.
Just out of curiosity, where did it? So I think we've mentioned a couple times, and I'm filled with anxiety and dread, right? And you have an ability that I see very infrequently, and that's that you seem to be fearless in your sense of going up to someone and asking them to do stuff. And I know this because you make me do stuff I don't want to do all the time. So
like that ad that I got.
Exactly. But how do you have that confidence to go up to a nationally well-known Catholic celebrity and say, anything, do this for me?
You know what? They're human. They're people. They're working for the kingdom just like I am. And if they have the time, I'm willing to ask to give them the time. So I don't even think about it. I just do. Yeah, I just do. I just whatever's going to help. Whatever's going to help for the kingdom, I'm all for. So if it means maybe putting myself out there a little bit in a natural way, though, I don't want to be all like awkward and weird about it. Hey, listen, you're talking to a girl that threw a T-shirt into the Pope Mobile. So there you go.
No, the Swiss guards took her out.
I lived to see the next day. I got it right in. It went boop right into it. I timed it right while he was coming by.
Wait, which Pope?
So, Pope Francis.
Okay. When he was in Philly?
No, at the end of John Paul II's canonization mass. We were there, lined up.
That's awesome.
It was the same day as iRace for Vocations in our Camden Diocese.
And you whipped an iRace?
We were wearing the Camden Diocese iRace shirts. Myself, at the time, seminarian Father Josh Nevitt, and my husband. And Josh at the time, now Father Neve, says, we should give him our T-shirts. People do that sometimes. I was like, well, I don't know how we're going to give it to him. He's like 10 feet away. So we took it off, we rolled it up, and we got I was just waiting. My softball skills came in at that moment, and boom, threw it so that it timed it right. It went through the air as it came by, landed right in. I have pictures.
Wow,
prove
that
it.
is a skill set, I got to tell
so
you.
I'm always like, where is this shirt today? It's probably on some homeless person he gave it to in Rome, which is a beautiful thing.
That's fine.
But where did that shirt end up? It went right in. It was hysterical.
Oh, that's outstanding.
So yeah, I'm not afraid to do, I mean, obviously that wasn't furthering the kingdom in any way, but you know what? I just think if it's for good, especially for the youth, that's my passion. That's where God has called me to. Then I'm gonna try to do it and try to make it happen. Just like when you approach me to do things, and I always say to you, if it's gonna evangelize, if it's gonna help others, I'll do it.
That's great.
That is great, actually. I'm glad you do those things. Say yes.
Thanks.
Say yes. And stop saying no when I come up with other ideas, too.
You're welcome. Sure.
But, Paul, there's another element to your essence as a raconteur. You're singing.
I still don't know what raconteur means.
I'm about to Google it over here because I don't know.
I don't even know how to spell that.
No, you guys are going to have to look up my 10-cent words.
Raconteur.
You are what it is. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I am what I am.
But one of the things is you're musically inclined on top of everything else. I know in previous interviews you talked about your beatboxing, but I watched some of your videos, and where did the affinity and ability to create music come from?
Well, it all came in 3rd grade when I was the lead role in the school play. I was the scarecrow protecting the Cabbage Patch Princess. No, I mean, I grew up in a somewhat musical family, and so there was a lot of singing and piano in the house and this sort of thing. And in high school, I developed a knack for beatboxing, which is essentially making vocal percussion noises, and then kind of dabbling in hip hop and rap, and then spoken word poetry, and then songwriting, and then acoustic guitar, and just kind of became a hodgepodge of different musical influences. But I've always enjoyed music a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's your favorite artist? I was curious about that.
Oh wow.
That you look up to.
Gosh, it just depends, and it depends on what genre you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I have so many different favorite.
Well, let's say you're riding in the car on your way home from here. What's going to come on?
Yeah.
You're praying the rosary.
Yeah, actually, I do that sometimes as well. I'll listen to some contemporary Christian artists, like whatever, like Hillsong's putting out. Funny enough, I've been listening a lot to Kanye West because he's been having this sort of conversion. Yeah, this new album drop where it's like a gospel album. And it's just so refreshing to see what's going on in his world.
Yeah.
But I listen to a lot of different genres, and wherever I can take inspiration, wherever, the truth is, wherever you find beauty, right, authentic beauty, there's God is there in a way, right? And I think it's important to, especially in our world, where more and more it becomes sort of difficult to identify where God is in people who might not be fully there yet. Rest assured that even in the mess, God is still there. You got to find it, and I think that's a challenge too, just in dealing with people in our lives as Catholics, is we need. Gosh, this is so hard, and I'm terrible at it. But as I say it, I'm being convicted. If we can look at a piece of bread and have faith to say that is Jesus Christ, then we have to do better with seeing a person in front of us and say that I also see Jesus in them. And it's much harder because a piece of bread is very peaceful.
Doesn't talk back, doesn't eye roll,
doesn't make
give
faces,
attitude.
give attitude. And it's like people are broken, and people are difficult, and people are annoying, and we all are in different ways. And yet, Christ in his humanity has, in essence, united himself to everyone. And the challenge is having the mental and spiritual space each day to step back and say, I see God in these people that I meet, to see God in the circumstances of my day, to see God in the blessings and even in the challenges of this day, that he's present, he's with me. And without prayer, without reflection in our lives, it's not possible. Yeah. We're much too distracted for that. And so, it's kind of the challenge to to take a step back. And I guess Lent is a good time to do that, where we kind of get back to the basics. And, in the end, and you mentioned a few times, and I appreciate the comments of, just your appreciation of my ministry. But, Catholic celebrity, I really don't like that term, because it's putting us on a pedestal where there really is no pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Christ is
So
on the
true.
pedestal.
Yeah.
The saints perhaps are on little lower pedestals, but we're all we're all just schlepping along. We're doing our best. God has obviously called me into a very precarious situation where he's inviting me to share and witness, but I'm very well aware of my own sinfulness, of my own struggles, my own need for God's mercy. And that's also the beauty of it, because I realize that the ministry isn't my own, it's God's.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still ministering to my heart. And it's by virtue of the fact that I'm trying that I believe he does honor that. He honors it when we're being authentic and we're seeking him, and we want to bless other people.
Yeah.
And, the struggle is also the very contribution we give to the body of Christ. And you look at the lives of any saints, and, people get fascinated by miracles and what they did and the heroic acts and deeds. But really what I'm fascinated with is what they struggled with and how they pushed through it.
Yeah.
Because we have much more in common via our weaknesses than our strengths.
Sure.
Yeah, that's just a universal reality. And what the saints show us is that sanctity, like holiness in Christ, is possible not because they're anything special, but because Christ, who lives in them, is able to accomplish all things. And so, for me, it's a joy if I can give hope to, a kid or an adult or whoever is coming to a presentation, and they get inspired to begin again. To have a reconnection and a new encounter with the Lord, and be reminded of who they are and whose they are. Then that for me is the most rewarding thing. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So as we wrap up the podcast, I just want to ask you, you're here tonight to give a presentation at Our Lady of Peace Parish in Williamstown, New Jersey, and at Kari's request. I'm just curious, for anyone who isn't attending tonight, what are they missing? What are they going to see tonight?
Everything.
Oh,
no, Jesus. Jesus is making a guest appearance. I'm just opening up for him. Gosh, well, I mean, essentially, I am here to just give my witness, to remind people of the love of the Father, and hopefully lead them in a time of prayer as well, where they can have a heart-to-heart and encounter with the Lord. And so, if your listeners are listening to this obviously after the fact, or they didn't come to the event, you can just look me up on Google, just type in Paul J. Kim, my middle initial J, and then you can visit my website as well, pjkmusic.com, find out a little bit more about my ministry. But a number of the videos on YouTube have talks that might be even similar to tonight. So feel free to watch those. But I do ask for your prayers if you're listening to this. Like you, we all need prayers, and we all need to persevere. We all need to be vigilant. We all need to stay out of jail for the wrong reasons. And we all need to remember that today we're called to live our best life in Christ, and that he is rooting for us. He doesn't just look at us with a stank face, like many Catholics would like to believe, but he looks at us with great love, and he encourages us. And Jesus tells us this day that as the Father has loved me, so I love you. So everything that Jesus has done was the initiative of the Father. The Father's crazy about us. He loves us. And that is the eternal truth that we will ponder forever and ever. But we should probably start now.
That's a great place
I
to start.
agree.
Yes.
Kari, you feeling comfortable with this evening?
Yeah, I'm excited for it, for those that can't be here, like Paul said, just look them up. I mean, there's great stuff out there. I've shown it to my group before in promoting this event tonight. I've shown it, and even those that couldn't make it tonight were saying just how it really did touch them or bring something out. Like, wow, I never realized it that way, or never looked at it that way. So there's some great stuff out there by not just Paul, but a lot of other great Catholic speakers that are doing the Lord's work here on this earth to help promote the faith. And so
Just a lot of them, and I'm so blessed to call a number of them friends. But yeah, and I think it just goes to show also that like the work of evangelization is not just for our priests or religious. Like it's every one of us, every lay person is invited to be witnesses. And we can't be lazy. This is not the time, you know, and it's not just for Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door. It's like, it's for you at work, in your relationships, in your friendships, at school, you know, in your hobbies. Like, if people don't know that you're Catholic, then that's a problem. If they aren't convinced that you're Catholic, even though you say you are, that's also a problem. There should be enough definitive evidence for a person who sees you to know that God is a priority in your life. And it's not enough always to, you know, that the quote is often attributed to St. Francis. Unfortunately, he never said it.
No, he didn't. I know what you're going to say.
Preach the gospel at all times, use words when necessary. He used words all the time.
Yeah.
You know, he preached on corners, and, you know, he he made friends as well as enemies, but he wasn't ashamed of the gospel. And obviously, there's this could be another podcast. There's ways of doing it that don't step on people's toes, right? But
and I think just being natural about it, being natural and letting your life be a reflection of what God's love has been to you, and just reflecting it out to others and sharing that with others and being a witness in that way. Yeah,
I met a priest from Opus Dei, and I'll just end with this, who said, you know, when you meet someone who's in a relationship and they're just crazy about their significant other, or they just got married and they're just like, they're just reeling in the joy of being married, you can't stop them from talking about it and sharing about who their beloved is. Yeah. Well, if our beloved is Christ, then why aren't we sharing?
Why aren't we?
Or maybe he's not. And so that's something we have to all consider, like, especially this Lent. Like, is Christ our priority? And does his presence in our lives make any difference? Because it should. It's very powerful. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here. It's been awesome to have you on the podcast.
Word.
Yeah, Paul, thank you very much. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. And Kari, thanks for setting this up. And we'll chat with everybody else next week.
God bless.
Bye.